Yeah, I was just hooked on the mode of travel of it. It was really cool to be able to access the mountains and access the high alpine and access wild places.
So, what is ski mountaineering?
Ski mountaineering, or you'll hear it called Skimo pretty frequently, is the only new sport in the 2026 Olympics. And it's essentially skiing without chairlifts. It's short, it's fast, it's intense, and there's a lot to it.
Is it a technical sport? Is it a pure, like, physical endurance kind of sport? Like, what?
Yeah, that's the thing, is someone competing in Skimo has to be able to do a bit of everything, right? You need to be able to literally run up the mountain with your skis on your feet, and you have to be able to race back down, racing with gravity like you see the alpine racers do in the Olympics, and then you're also having to transition your gear between uphill mode, downhill mode, or sections that are too steep to ski up, and you put your skis on your back. So there's kind of these F1 pit stops almost mixed into this endurance and gravity based sport. So yeah, it's a bit of everything.
It kind of sounds like the triathlon, but with skiing, where you're doing this, then you're changing gear, then you're doing this, then you're changing gear, then you're doing this. Is that right, or am I completely wrong on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good track to think of it. And then the transitions are probably even more a part of our sport because we're doing them so frequently. So triathlon, I mean, you make your switch from swim to bike and from bike to run, and those are key parts of the race, sure, but we're making transitions constantly throughout uphill, downhill, in between, all over the place. So yeah, the racing's really dynamic. I mean, people might be stronger uphill, downhill, and then these transitions just like totally throw a wrench into things, and the lead changes frequently, and there's a lot of back and forth, and no lead is ever safe, and it's really dynamic to race, and it's exciting to watch. So I'm pumped for people to see it in February.
You know, you mentioned this is the first time this has been in the Olympics. Has this sport been sitting there for a while, or has this kind of just come up out of nowhere?
Like where skiing came from in the US comes a lot from what's called the 10th Mountain Division, which was a specialized group of soldiers in World War II that the US had trained up as part of their military, which many of the other European countries essentially already had a version of this. It was basically just like a mountain fighting troop. So they trained in rock climbing and they trained in skiing and what looks a lot like skimo or backcountry skiing now. And then they also trained as soldiers because the Alps were such a key battleground in World War One and World War Two. And then a lot of those veterans then came back from Europe and said, hey, this skiing thing's great. Like, check out this technology. We should probably start some ski areas. Like, people should try this, check it out. And that's kind of how skiing gained popularity in the US. And so, like, really, when you think about it from that perspective, backcountry skiing and skimo are really the roots of the sport. And then, like, as we built chairlifts and you were able to just ski down and people are like, wow, it's really great to just do this. That kind of has become skiing as we know it currently. But yeah, it has that sort of historic sense in it. And then from a competitive standpoint, there's been international competitions and a World Cup for about 30 years now. And then, I mean, when you have a World Cup of a sport, you look to the Olympics as kind of the holy grail of like, has your sport made the big time or not? So, I mean, they've been working on this for a long time of trying to get the sport in. Like, I know it was a conversation at least as far back as 2006. Like, someone had just told me that like, oh, I was racing in 2006 and I remember filling out a form or an interest thing of some kind saying like, yeah, I'd love to race in the Olympics one day. And it's a long battle to get in, of being recognized by the IOC, getting the local organizing committee and host country on board, and fitting all these parameters essentially. So there was talk of it joining in 2022, but it didn't quite make the cut for that games, and then here we are for 2026. So
What's it like to be competing in the new Olympic sport?
yeah, it'll be really fascinating just to have everything be new and historic just by virtue of it happening, right? Like, every gold medalist will be the first gold medalist, every silver medalist will be the first silver medalist. Like, everyone on the start line will be part of the sport's birth in the games. Like, it'll be really exciting to show it to the world for the first time, you know?
Do people feel an extra pressure? Like, okay, Yeah, we're at the Olympics. That's a lot of pressure, but we're a new sport. We've got to really kind of show out, so to speak, to make sure we come back. And
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of like, do people feel that? It's like there's only a few of us, right? Like there's only 36 athletes racing in the games. But I think of it more as like my partner Anna and I that are racing are more just carrying the torch for this much broader movement. Like the team worked really hard to qualify and to get here, and lots of people played a role in getting the team qualified, and the sport's growing really fast in the US and worldwide in these mountain locations, and it's just exciting to be a part of that, and really we're just kind of carrying the torch for all those people. So I don't really feel pressure in the sense of like, oh, it's the first one, people better like it. I'm thinking of it more of like, let's just do what we do and perform, and I think people will enjoy seeing what they see on TV.
how'd you get into it?
So I started with a race called the Grand Traverse in the town in Colorado that I live in. So there's this race that starts in one town called Crested Butte, skis to the other, called Aspen. It's this 40-mile race that you do in teams of two, and it starts in the middle of the night to help mitigate the avalanche danger. And you just traverse across the mountains and ski from this one town to the other. And yeah, I was just hooked on the mode of travel of it. It was really cool to be able to access the mountains and access the high alpine and access wild places in the wintertime when normally it's really hard to get around. And then it was great to be able to ski back down instead of instead of walking or running. Like you climb these peaks and then you get to go skiing to get back to where you started. So it's just a really cool way to move in the mountains, and then the racing was just an extension of that.
Are you ready for some harder / listener submitted questions?
Sure.
Is it better to be good at going up or good at going down?
Oh man, you spend more of your time going up, so you can probably make more of a difference there, but it's a lot sexier to be good at going down. So it depends on what you're going for. But
Is going down taking time off? Like, do you feel like, okay, I can take a break going down? Or is it, oh no, that's just as hard as going up in a different way?
yeah, that's a good question. In the Olympic disciplines, we're skiing on these groomed ski slopes, and so there's not a huge physical output, but you are trying really hard to execute those turns super well and make sure that you're gaining time on the competitors and not losing any through those skiing those gates. So there's a lot of mental focus in that element. But then in the individual discipline where you're skiing off-piste on ungroomed snow in wild places, then a lot of times people hit their max heart rate, for example, on the downhills, and not on the uphills, because you're working so hard to kind of absorb those G-forces and all the chatter under your skis and like just the super high muscular output to the downhill. So it kind of depends on the discipline a little bit.
When you look at the venue you'll be competing at, is there something unique about it? Does it stand out and have unique challenges to it? Or is it more, that's a pretty traditional competition venue for this?
Yeah, for the Olympic course in Bormio, Italy, the course itself will be kind of wide open for the first climb, which will be really nice for passing, and then kind of its defining characteristic is these big parabolic turns on the downhill, which also make it really easy to pass on the downhill. It creates more space around the gates for athletes to go around each other. So I think it'll make for really good racing in the sense of it'll be wide open and people will be able to make their moves and play their cards and show their strength. So I think that's kind of the defining quality of the course to me, yeah, is that openness, which I think will make it really good to spectate.
Oh, so it's a shotgun start. It's not a timed, everybody goes through it. You're all racing together at one time. In the downhill, does that cause, that seems like that could cause some problems.
For sure, yes and yes. Yeah, we're all starting together and racing together, and that's why kind of the head-to-head uphill, downhill, and transitions become so exciting because the race can really get turned upside down in an instant.
Yeah, I mean, are there crashes?
For sure, yeah. And we're elbowing each other and like, yeah, trying to make passes in all those different sections of the race. Like it's it's competitive and it's hard and anything can happen. So
does the downhill just get chaotic at times?
For sure, yeah. And that's where that transition helps a lot. Like if you can go from uphill to downhill quicker, then you can get further ahead of all that traffic and maybe have a more clear line back to the bottom of the course. So yeah, it's all very strategic, and yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
How many seconds separate a good transition from a bad transition?
Yeah, that's interesting too. So um, I mean, let's exclusively look at the uphill to downhill transition, for example. So like skins off. So you're locking both of your boots into downhill mode, you're locking both your bindings into downhill mode, you're pushing both of those feet into position, reaching forward, grabbing both skins, pulling them off. You got to fold them up, store them away, grab your poles, and you can go. And that takes a high level athlete probably 6 seconds to do all that. And it, like, if you're doing this recreationally, it can be like 5 to 10 minutes. Because a lot of times people are, stopping at the top for a picnic or to take some photos.
Right, you take a little time. Yeah.
For sure. So like if the base is kind of 6 seconds, like someone can do a 5 second one and maybe like gain that edge going into the downhill, or someone might not be able to pull their skin all the way off right away, the skin that's on the bottom of the ski, and add a second and then kind of lose a position. But you can also like totally drop the skins or like miss your binding when you go to transition it, and it can go to being like a 15-second process instead of 5 or 6. So I mean, those like 1 seconds definitely make a difference, but you can also totally flub it and like yeah, lose the pack, and the race is totally changed again. So yeah, it's unique for sure.
Yeah, if you blow a transition, are you done?
Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, the mixed relays in total still takes about 30 minutes, so you can make that up over the course of those next climbs and descents, but it is really, really hard to do because everyone's pretty much the same level uphill, pretty much the same level downhill, and these transitions really make a big difference. So it's hard to come back from, but if someone is on an exceptional level, then yeah, for sure you can make up for it, but you definitely don't want to put yourself in that position.
For you, like what part are you best at? What part are you worst at?
Probably the uphill for me is where I have the most success, and then these transitions in like high pressure situations, like I tend to do well when it's chaotic and snowy and windy and there's other people kind of all around me and stepping on my poles and doing this and that. If I tend to do better with the chaos a little bit.
What country is ski mountaineering the biggest in?
Yeah, so the French team and the Spanish team are probably the two, and the Swiss are probably the three nations with the best Olympic athletes in general. There's a lot of exceptions to that rule out there, and a lot of really strong athletes that'll be out there. Italy has a really rich history in this sport, but just not necessarily in these disciplines. And then all the Alp and Pyrenees nations. So Austria's really good. Like all the Scandinavian countries. But yeah, I would say that France, Spain, Switzerland will probably be the ones that will be garnering the most medals at the end of the day.
Do we have a shot?
I think we do. Yeah. So we were ranked 13th going into the final World Cup, the qualification period, and 12 teams would qualify. But then my teammate Anna and I won that race, and that was on home soil. So you often race better at home when everyone else has to travel over to you, and not every other team was fielding a full strength relay team at that point of the year either, because some of them had already clinched their Olympic spot. So there's a few caveats there, but we did win the race. So I think certainly we showed that day that on our right day, we've gotten a lot better, and we're definitely coming and ready to make some noise. And I think on our best day, we're for sure, contending for medals.
Are there technical aspects to it? Like, do you ever use ice axes, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, good question. So in the traditional disciplines of the sport, so we call it the individual race. This is the more in wild mountains, off the ski resorts event where you're climbing up and skiing down in wild places and on technical ridges, on peaks, couloirs, all that good stuff. Yeah, you might use crampons, you might use ice axes, you might have roped sections where you're traveling on a rope in a more exposed area. And it's definitely a wild mountain sport. And then the Olympic disciplines are these more short, fast, competitive ones. But the rumor is that for 2030 and thus then for 2034 that the individual will be added then. So this is kind of the taste everyone will get to start with. And then I think what people will see in the future is athletes running up these ridges to summit mountains wearing spandex and going head to head on the uphill, and then racing down these like exposed mountain faces. And I think it's going to be really cool once we get a foothold in the Olympics and continue to build in the next few quads of the sky's really the limit for the sport. I think it'll be a really good spectacle.
So, obviously I think that anytime you're doing a sport, you kind of got to make it for TV, right? You got to get the TV part of it. Is the part that you talked about where you're kind of going more up the ridges, is that the truer aspect of the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what gets people into the sport in the first place, is they want to go skiing. They want to go to these cool places. And the Olympic disciplines are just kind of isolating all the skills of that. So these transitions, uphills, downhills, and trying to just put it all in this super condensed format. But yeah, I mean, you could say pure Skimo, pure ski mountaineering is more out in these wild places. But again, I think there's an Olympic future there too. It's harder to organize, harder to televise, definitely still possible to do both those things. And so we're optimistic that this is just the start. And in the future, you'll see more and more of us and more of these disciplines and these races happening in more and more places.
That's all the questions I got. If people want to find out more, where can they find you? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at CamFromCB. CB is in Crested Butte. That's the town I live in Colorado. And then same with USA Skimo. My race partner, Anna Gibson, is on Instagram as well. I don't know her handle off the top of my head, to be honest. But yeah, you can check us all out there. And then you'll see us wherever you get your Olympic news and TV too. So yeah.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Profoundly Pointless. From society and sexuality to science and sports, every week we explore something new from a side of life you may never have heard of. Subscribe if you're interested. There's a playlist, I think, on the right if you want to see more videos like this. Someday I'm going to finish painting that wall, and just for the record, I'm not orange. I just don't know how to fix this. But thanks for checking out the show. Would love to hear from you. Okay, I should stop. Stop. There it is.